Okay, it's 5 o'clock, and I think we'll begin the session. Lovely. So welcome everyone. As we begin, I'm sure like it's 5 and we will soon have a couple of more people joining in, but lovely to see all of you on a Saturday evening. Most of you are aware what Adyan does, and that our vision is to ensure that there's a good school for every child. And this organization came into being about 7 to 8 years ago by Kavita Anand and Skokie Wheeler, who started it as social enterprise to work with school leaders who are interested in creating 21st century learning environments for every student. So we work very, very closely with people who are interested in education and who love to work with students in some capacity. For today's COP session, we welcome Dr. Manavi. Dr. Manavi Jadhav is a laboratory astrophysicist and a planetary scientist who looks for stardust in extraterrestrial material in the labs and studies them to understand the stars and our solar system. I think that in itself is so amazing. Her educational qualifications are something else. She has a PhD in Earth and planetary sciences that has allowed her to appreciate the power of interdisciplinary inquiry and collaboration within the sciences. She's really active in inclusivity, diversity, equity, and accessibility, which is the IDEA work, and feels passionately about implementing IDEA policies in all educational settings and also in her research community. She is the IDEA co-representative for the Extraterrestrial Material Analysis Group. That is a planetary science community-based forum that represents the extraterrestrial material research community to NASA. Manvi has participated in numerous science expeditions, most notable of which was hunting for meteorites in Antarctica on a NASA-sponsored expedition. She is an academician in the US for 22 years, and most recently, she worked as a professor of physics at the University of Louisiana, where she taught physics and astronomy, and she mentored research students at the BSc, MSc, and PhD level. When Manvi is not in the lab, she is researching stardust. She is teaching and mentoring students to become planetary scientists. And she also enjoys speaking with school children about STEM careers and getting them excited about space missions and exploration. And more than all of that, she's my fellow Puneri. So Manvi, welcome to Adyan, and lovely to know you. So this session, I'm handing it over to you. So please go ahead.
Hey, hello everyone. Thank you for being here on a Saturday evening, and thank you so much, Viveki. And thank you, Adyan, for inviting me to have this seminar. So, as you heard in the introduction, I'm a planetary scientist, which means I have had a rigorous STEM education from all the way from junior college right up to my PhD for close to 20 years. And I mentor students to be scientists, right? But today, I'm going to talk about how a STEM background at the school level is very important for everyone, not just students who are interested in STEM careers, right? So I firmly believe that a STEM background helps make the innovators of the future, and I highly support STEM careers, but I support non-STEM careers equally. So the ideas and concepts that I'm going to present here are a consolidation of my experiences from years of being in a STEM field and then teaching and mentoring university students, and then everything I've learned so far about educational methods. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with the acronym STEM, but in case there's someone here who isn't, then STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Maths. So let's start with a question for all of you. In the chat window, could you please type the names of some traditional STEM careers you know of? Okay, good. So it looks like all of you are familiar with STEM careers, right? Now, my next question to you is, if I can advance these slides. Okay, my next question is, type the names of some non-STEM careers that you could be very good at with a STEM background. Okay, for some reason I can't. There it is. Okay, good. So some of you in here probably don't need to be in this talk, but hopefully you'll learn something more. So there really is no right or wrong answer here, because my answer to this would have been that pretty much any career is going to benefit from a STEM background in early education. So the aim of the rest of my talk is to hopefully convince you about this, okay? So whether we like it or not, we are completely entrenched in a STEM world. So even those of you who try to live free of gadgets, our world is built by science, right? So take, for example, all our communication gadgets and common household gadgets. Our cell phones use radio waves, right? And then we have GPS and lasers in pretty much all gadgets and electronics that we use. Satellites in space allow us to use our GPS units. So almost everything in our lives exists because of STEM, right? And with time, this dependence is only going to increase, which is why there is such a push to promote STEM education, and there's such a high demand for STEM professionals the world over. So in India, we produce the largest number of STEM graduates, second only to China. And we all know that Indian STEM professionals contribute significantly to not just our economy, but to the world's economy. So the future is going to need clean energy, better satellite and space technology, sustainability technology that will hopefully protect us from the effects of climate change. And that list is really endless. So it's obvious we need more STEM professionals to do these jobs. And I hope we all agree on that, right? So let's look at the most common reasons for why we need STEM education in general. So if you Google this, you will find reasons that basically all say that the primary reason is to solve 21st century problems through new tech, new scientific discoveries, and innovation. So all these reasons are 100% valid, and I highly support students going into STEM careers. And in fact, of course, I train students for doing just that. But today we're not going to discuss all these career paths that I've listed over here on this slide. We will talk about something that's a lot more nuanced and, in my opinion, more important for a student's development. So let's first talk about what can be gained from a good STEM education at the school level, right? So right here, I want to digress a little bit and make sure we are all on the same page regarding the quality of STEM education that I'm referring to today, right? So I'm not referring to the traditional STEM classroom that I attended as a child, and probably a majority of the audience that went to school in the 80s and 90s. So this is where the teacher stands in front of the classroom and is speaking at the students, and the students are expected to memorize the information that is presented to them, right? So according to Bloom's taxonomy of learning, memorizing is the lowest form of learning. It needs at the beginning, it's needed at the beginning, right? But learning needs to be applied, and students need to analyze and evaluate that information that they have just applied, right? So I'm talking about STEM education that's imparted through activities or experiential learning, right? Educational research has already shown that students learn best from peer-to-peer interactions. So students need to talk and debate with each other and also their teacher. So that's how problem-solving skills and creativity are imbibed. And that's how innovators are trained. So STEM skills cannot be taught to students. They are developed. And so in such a classroom scenario, the teacher is essentially a facilitator of learning. That's all, right? The teacher is responsible for creating and assigning activities that impart the skills that I have listed here. So those are critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, and creativity. So typically in a good STEM activity, you don't just include one of science, engineering, or technology or math. So depending on the level of education, it's possible to include within one typical activity a combined lesson of all four, right? So the ones that I've listed here are the most commonly talked about skills one gains from a good STEM education. These are the main skills that we need to impart to students who will become the innovators of our future world. But let's look at other skills that are also developed along the way. And these are not talked as much. So the two columns on the right list some of the additional skills you gain from a STEM background in school. So basically, you can't be a critical thinker or a good problem solver if you're not objective and curious, okay? You will be creative if you have very strong cognitive abilities, right? And contrary to popular belief that STEM isn't the right environment for emotions, recent research has also shown that a STEM classroom is the perfect setting to impart what's called social emotional learning. So having good social emotional skills are essential if you want students to learn that very important STEM skill of collaboration, right? So in the next few minutes, I want to talk about these in a little more detail. And so if you're new to any of these terms, I'll define them for you in a bit. Right, so being able to strengthen a child's cognitive ability is the primary reason to introduce STEM as early as preschool, okay? So I have the definition of cognition for you over here. It is defined as the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thinking, experience, and the senses, okay? So it turns out that the neuroplasticity of our brains is responsible for shaping our cognitive processes, okay? Neuroplasticity is just the ability of the human brain to constantly reorganize its neural connections in response to an activity or an environment. A child's brain is a lot more plastic than an adult's, and so enhancing a child's cognitive development depends on exposing them to activities that increase the number of neural pathways and connections in their brains, right? So STEM activities are perfect for acquiring such strong cognitive skills. So these activities can be as simple as primary or preschool activities where you have a bucket of water and you predict which object in the classroom is going to sink or float, right? Or you build a wall with bricks or blocks that is the most stable, right? Or you can have higher level classes and they can do involved activities like robotics. So let's see how STEM can enhance your cognitive abilities. So just give you a few examples. So STEM activities tend to have a diverse range of sensory and motor experiences, right? So these activities simulate a different part of the brain. Then STEM activities require a lot of practice and repetition. This again allows the brain to form new neural pathways, right? One of the most important things about STEM activities is that STEM activities are all about making mistakes and then fixing them. So when a child makes a mistake and finds a way to fix it, the brain rewires itself and gives the child better problem-solving skills and resilience. And resilience is a social emotional skill, right? So the worst thing you can do for a child is protect them from failure. Allow them to fail and let them know that it's the only way to learn. And that there's absolutely nothing wrong with failing, right? So good STEM activities definitely impart children with very, very strong cognitive abilities. Now let's talk about creativity. So I have various definitions here, but basically creativity is coming up with novel ways to solve and approach a problem, right? So there's this well-known educational psychologist called Sternberg, and he said that in order to develop a child's creative attitude towards life, students should be encouraged to create, invent, discover, explore, imagine, and suppose, right? So imagination is key for creativity, and creativity is a given for innovation, right? We all know that. So the next time you're in a classroom or with a child at home, ask them to lift a ball of crumpled paper without touching the ball directly. So you will be so surprised at the many different ways that children can come up with to do this activity, right? They might not all be practical, obviously, but they are definitely all creative, right? So these are the kids who will be coming up with sustainable technologies that will save our planet. These are the kids who will come up with a new art form, right? So I strongly believe that we need creativity to advance as a civilization. Now, connected to creativity is a student's social emotional health. So I'm going to read the description for you. So social emotional learning is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. Okay, so we already know that the research about the benefits of a regular STEM education is extensive, right? We know that it's a very valuable educational approach to promote cognitive and analytical skills that are very imperative for solving complex problems. But education should not be all about cognitive skills. It should also encompass social emotional skills. So developing emotional intelligence, empathy, and emotional regulation are crucial for personal well-being and to build healthy relationships. So if we want to have a world with well-rounded and socially competent people, it's very important to integrate these skills into basic education. So it's been found that STEM education and social emotional skills are complementary to each other, surprisingly. So there's this great organization called the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And they've set the goal of a social emotional learning program as developing these 5 cognitive and behavioral competencies. And they are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. So nurturing these skills through intentional activities in the classroom helps children take responsibility for their actions and they can make good choices in academia and beyond academia, right? So in short, STEM education goes beyond teaching maths and science. So with the integration of this social emotional approach, it offers students the possibility to develop academic competencies that are balanced with skills to manage their emotions, interact constructively with each other, and promote their emotional well-being. Okay. And moving on to one of the most important skills you learn from a STEM education is critical thinking. So in this day and age, we should more or less all agree that education isn't about learning facts, but it's about training the mind to think, right? So Einstein was once asked that was asked by someone what the speed of light was, right? And he didn't know the exact number, which was shocking to that person who asked the question, because Einstein dealt with the speed of light in all his calculations, right? So Einstein said that, why do I need to have it memorized when I can look it up in any textbook, right? So let's all agree that education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. Okay, so STEM education is rooted in learning how to think critically. So critical thinking was the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates' favorite subject to teach his students. He encouraged them to think critically about their ideas and beliefs. He believed that if people questioned assumptions, they would see their flaws in reasoning and correct their thought processes. Okay, so critical thinking is used to objectively evaluate information and come up with reasonable conclusions. Now, STEM education can expose children to the idea that what we perceive is not real. Okay, there needs to be a thought process to deduce what is real from what we perceive, right? And so we all know this famous story that we've been told as children of the 6 blind men who had heard about elephants from the other villagers, right? But they were blind and they wanted to experience an elephant themselves. So when they were finally around an elephant, they each perceived that elephant as something else based on the limit of their perception or their exploration, right? So they fought and called each other stupid because they thought they were correct and refused to consider what the other person's perspectives were, right? So considering everyone's perspectives would have helped them understand that animal, okay? So STEM allows students to realize that our perceptions are not the whole story, right? Our perceptions are inherently flawed and very highly biased, right? So considering all the information and evaluating it without bias is the only chance to understand reality. So STEM classrooms teach critical thinking by following these very basic steps. Question everything. Don't just believe information given to you at face value, right? Ask for data and look for evidence. Always remind yourself to be objective and not to be swayed by your personal beliefs and biases. Okay, then consider everyone's ideas, but don't accept them right away without testing the ideas, right? And then keep your mind open to other information that is often overlooked. And so if the new evidence requires you to change your previous conclusions, don't hesitate to do it at all, right? So when we learn to look at things objectively and with a sense of curiosity, we're able to see both sides of an issue and make more informed decisions. Unlike what happened in that elephant story we just saw, right? So being objective and curious allows us to be better critical thinkers, okay? And so students should be encouraged to embrace critical thinking, nurture curiosity, and strive for objectivity, okay? These should be basic life skills, okay? So remember, these qualities are not fixed traits, right? But these skills can be cultivated. And once these skills are cultivated, we gain a deeper understanding of the universe around us and can make better decisions that directly affect us and the world that we live in, no matter what career path you choose, right? So the next time you stop a small child or student from asking a million questions because it's irritating or you don't have the time for it, remember you're stifling their curiosity, and actually in turn, you're stifling their genius, right? A famous study that you might all have heard about, funded by NASA and led by George Land in 1968, found that 98% of 5-year-olds could be classified as creative geniuses. When he tested the same 5-year-olds when they were 10-year-olds, only 30% were still geniuses. And at 15 years, the number fell to an astonishing 12%. And guess what? George Land unequivocally attributed this trend to schools and traditional schooling. So it's time to stop stifling the genius of our youth and instead create learning environments that will allow the geniuses and the innovators of the future to thrive. Okay, so hopefully everything I've covered so far has convinced you that a STEM education is not just about STEM careers, right? It's about learning how to think and how to process information in such a way that benefits you, your family, and the world, really, right? So I love this quote from this book. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your decisions, and the quality of your decisions is determined by the quality of your thinking, right? So now I'm going to talk to you about some real life scenarios in which a solid STEM education in schools would have been useful. So I heard somewhere that a civilization is going through what is called an infodemic, right? So basically we are drowning in information and misinformation. And we as human beings who are inherently biased and irrational are not able to process this information correctly, right? So information affects our thoughts and decisions. And so being able to understand and interpret information that comes to us from any media, okay, should be an essential 21st century skill. So in 2020, UNESCO presented some big ideas to build the foundations of a post-pandemic education, right? And one of these was to ensure scientific literacy within the curriculum. So as the planet is recovering from a period of intense science denial, we all saw that in every country in the world, it's highly imperative that to actively fight misinformation, okay? So a STEM critical thinking background will allow people to evaluate news and information by following these steps. Okay, identify the source and their motivation. Is the claim they make factual or opinion-based? Is there an evidence for that claim? And are there any other points of view? Right? So all critical thinking trainings that you might take follow these basic steps. Okay, so which teach people how to evaluate information that they are presented with. Okay, so here I'm showing you one version of a claim that is sent to me, and probably because I'm a planetary scientist, more times than I can count, okay? So please don't read everything. I just put the whole message there to show you how convincing such information can be, right? I've highlighted the one word you need to see in there, and there's a diagram that shows you what it is. So here's the video. Hopefully it plays. Okay. So basically, they're saying that the moon will appear like this at some location on Earth at perigee. And perigee is the location on an elliptical orbit when the moon is the closest to the Earth. Okay. Now, this video is even more fun because it adds an eclipse to the claim, right? So every time I see such a message in my WhatsApp messages, it's funny, but it's also really, really sad, right? So if we as children had done one fun orbital motion of the moon activity in school, with fewer people forwarding such messages, I believe, right? So have a student stand in the center of a playground and have another child orbit around that central child, right? First in a circular orbit and then in an elliptical orbit where distances are scaled to how the moon orbits the Earth, right? It's a very simple activity. So every child in this activity will tell you that there is no significant difference in the size of the moon as we see it from Earth at the two different locations, right? Or at perigee and at what is called apogee, which is the opposite of perigee, okay? So I feel like if such STEM exercises are done in schools, people would be able to question and process such information in a more rational and logical way. And if you just go back to the list of steps I showed you on the previous slide, where's the evidence for this, right? Do you know at least 2 other people who have actually witnessed this happening, right? And the answer, hopefully, is a categoric no, right? So why forward such a message? Okay. So this was a less serious example I just gave you, but let's talk about the COVID-19 pandemic, right? The COVID-19 pandemic was a more serious fallout of a world that was not able to identify fake news from real news. And hence, that world is not media or information literate. And as a result, it isn't scientifically literate, right? So some of the top pieces of misinformation were that this was just another flu season and doctors are exaggerating the number of deaths. Masks are useless and do not keep us safe. And that because scientists keep giving us different information every few days, that they have no idea what is going on, right? So let's analyze these. Being able to compare basic statistics on death rates due to the common flu over the past few years and comparing it to the pandemic would have been able to stop people from believing that the COVID-19 virus was just like any other flu virus, right? A basic school education on viruses and how they spread would have made people keep their masks on, despite all the misinformation in social media. And even if that was a precautionary step, if nothing else, until scientists learned more about the virus, right? So that's where social emotional skills also come in. Just because you and your family are doing okay doesn't mean that the virus is not deadly for someone else, right? So if people were aware of the scientific process, they'd know that no conclusion made by science is final, right? Especially in the scenario of a global pandemic, where research is happening in real time. So as scientists receive more and more information, they update their previous conclusions, okay? And this doesn't mean scientists don't know what they're doing. Science is a self-correcting process, okay? So I firmly believe that a memorable STEM education in schools could have been responsible for more people around the world being scientifically literate during this pandemic. But somehow the countries around the world failed at that. Okay. And then I'm going to talk about another very crucial 21st century crisis, right, which is climate change and global warming, right? So one common piece of misinformation is that just a 2-degree change in the temperature is not going to result in a catastrophic sea level rise of close to 3 feet that scientists are predicting, right? So what I've shown here, I know these pictures don't look like global change pictures, but climate change pictures, but they're of a simple experimental setup that can be done in schools with the heat from a lamp, heating the water in a water bottle, which has a straw attached to it, okay? And as the water gets heated, you can see the water rising as the water heats, okay? It's a simple yet very, very powerful experiment to allow even primary or preschool children to appreciate the fact that water expands as it heats, right? And there are other experiments with ice for higher grade children, and those can be used to explain what will happen when the ice melt. Okay, so again, scientific literacy is important so that you can make important decisions about, for example, who to elect and which government is going to help tackle the most important 21st century crisis, right? So scientific literacy, again, is attached to critical thinking. And if we had been given a great STEM education, we'd be able to think these things through rationally. Okay, so just from talking to people who didn't believe that the pandemic was real, and those who think climate change is a hoax, scientists and anthropologists believe that scientific illiteracy is capable of destroying society, right? And I've listed here some of the critical problem areas that most countries are facing right now that are a direct result of what is called the infodemic, right? I'm not going to go over these in detail, but I'm happy to talk about any one of these later if you want. So what I'm showing you now is a few profound sentences from a post-pandemic 2021 UNESCO report that says, science has value only if we know where to find it, what to do with it, and how to integrate it into a wider system for the well-being of humanity and the planet. And the most important thing is that that system must include a scientifically literate population. Okay, so otherwise no amount of progress is going to matter. Okay, so I'm going to move on to something lighter. I know that was all a little too intense, but let's look at some fun careers that are not traditionally STEM careers, right? So science communication is crucial for a scientifically literate world, okay? It's very, very imperative for someone to translate some of the complicated stuff scientists work on for the common person, right? And scientists are very well known to not be able to talk to the common person about what they're doing, right? While they should also be trained in that kind of thing. But a science communicator is crucial for this kind of communication. And so the general public has a right to know what scientists are doing because a lot of the research around the world is funded by taxpayers' money, right? So a good science communicator is critical in this world. Okay, I cannot say that often enough. So on the left is a screenshot from the Scientific American website of some popular science articles written about different topics. On the right is a popular science book, a scientific biography, and a science fiction book, right? And a large number of excellent science writers are not scientists, okay? So for example, as Elizabeth Colbert, who wrote The Sixth Extinction, is trained in literature, right? So these writers basically have a passion for science, right? And I believe that that passion was cultivated in school, okay? So one of my favorite non-STEM careers is science illustration. Okay, so this is Veronica Hayes, and she's a fantastic artist who illustrated for Scientific American during the pandemic, right? She has a master's in art in medical and biological illustration. She's also an animator. So she draws and she animates science results, right? So my biology is terrible, but I think everything that I learned about the coronavirus, I learned because of her illustration, okay? And so that's the power of an artist who is interested in STEM. And now another great career path for an artist is science graphic design. So one of my favorite pieces of art can be seen at NASA's Exoplanet Travel Bureau website. Okay, so NASA decided to get the public involved in exoplanet research, which, if you think about it, for a common person is really just some scientist who are studying just another tiny star in the sky, right? But it's so much more than that. We are trying to find planets that are like ours. We're trying to see if there are other civilizations in our universe, right? So NASA decided to entice people into thinking of each of these newly discovered planets as a possible vacation spot, right? And for that, they employed graphic designers. So the left two pictures are travel brochures to explore exoplanet 55 Cancri E and Kepler 16b, okay? In one brilliant picture, the artists for each of these planets, the artists are able to teach the public the main scientific oddities of these planets, right? So you should really check these out. They're a lot of fun, right? So now take a look at the picture on the right. It's an artist's depiction of our solar system, okay? We see versions of this picture everywhere on space agency websites the world over, and in textbooks, right? So they're obviously not photographs because we have not traveled far enough away from our solar system to be able to look back and take a picture like this one, right? So space agencies need excellent artists who can help depict what we know about our universe. And now I'm going to move away from art into social enterprise, okay? So here's one such enterprise that I really, really admire. So Ashaya was founded by Anish Malpani in Pune, and he dreamt of applying his business background to making a difference in the world, right? He started with trying to figure out how to recycle chip wrappers and help waste pickers who pick and sell these wrappers, right? So waste pickers live in utter poverty and suffer terrible health because of their work and have very, very low life expectancies, okay? And on the other hand, chips bags are the worst kind of waste because it's nearly impossible to recycle. And it's 80% of the waste that ends up in our oceans, right? So he decided to take on these two daunting problems and collaborated with others and figured out a way to recycle these bags, and he made sunglasses out of them. Okay, so sunglasses are just a proof of concept for this process. Okay, they plan to do a lot of other things, and I think they've already done a lot of other things. But this is what a STEM mindset can do, right? The science behind the recycling part is very impressive, right? But what's even more impressive is that 50 to 75% of this work can be done by the waste pickers who are part of his supply chain, and this empowers them. And they are all employees, right? So Ashaya is trying to tackle a multidimensional problem dealing with social, economic, and environmental issues. And I think this is the kind of social enterprise that is going to change the world. And again, just to remind you that this is the kind of social enterprise that can come about if you have an interest in STEM. Oops. So hopefully some of you, if not all of you, have seen this image in the last couple of years, right? So in August of 2022, NASA released this mind-blowing image of Jupiter, okay? This was amongst the first images taken by the very, very powerful, newly launched James Webb Space Telescope, okay? And it showed the rings of Jupiter, it showed some of the moons of Jupiter, it showed lightning activity, right? It showed the great storm. It also showed the auroral activity at both the poles, right? All this in one picture. We've never seen a picture like this before, right? And this will probably be one of the most iconic pictures of Jupiter for a few decades at least, okay? So admire this picture, but then answer this question. Apart from what I just told you about this image, does anyone know what else is super special about this image? Okay. Is there any?
Can you just go back to that image, Manvi?
Sure. So let me just tell you that the answer is not in the image. Oops.
Okay. Okay, I was just looking at it. I
Okay.
thought like, something to do with comparison or that sense. So yeah.
No. So photography style, that's a good answer. Helps us to see the past. Yes. Okay.
Because it'd be light years away. So you won't, it probably would be in terms of calculation, like a couple of things that have happened, activities that happen a couple of light years away. So I just
the light that is around the entire spectrum of the light around the planet.
That's a great answer. And basically it's a superposition of multi-wavelength images. So images taken at different wavelengths. Okay, but that's still not the answer I'm looking for. Scale of the image, yes, that's a great thing. Like I said, so if you maybe had seen this image before, and if journalism had done a right job, then you'd know that this image of Jupiter and a lot of famous images like the one that you see here were all image processing done by a citizen scientist called Judy Schmidt. Okay, so this person you're seeing here, she's not a trained astronomer. In fact, she has zero background in astronomy. But over the last 15 years or so, she's a recognized name in astronomy. So what she is an image processor, right? She has a passion for messing with images and processing them in Photoshop, right? She entered a contest organized by the European Space Agency 15 years ago, and that sparked an interest in her. And she has been doing brilliantly since then. So the next time you see an astronomy image, look in the caption and look for her name, because she's there in some of the most spectacular astronomy images that exist. Okay, so you don't have to have a formal training in a STEM field to be interested in science or to do something in science, right? You can apply whatever it is you are passionate about, right? And apply it to a science field that you're interested in, if you're interested in it, right? So I think that's what having a good science education can do for you. It can spark an interest in science, even if you don't plan on being a STEM professional. Okay, so what I've listed here is an incomplete list of careers that can benefit from a good background in science, right? But like I said before, I think STEM can be beneficial for any career, okay? Because it gives you those skills that we just talked about that are universally required, right? And so I'm going to stop by just telling you that the word STEAM exists now, and STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And it's a much more, it's starting to gain traction. It's now a widely used acronym because educators and policymakers are now accepting that it doesn't make sense to separate the arts from STEM, right? So none of these fields are mutually exclusive in this day and age, right? They impart crucial skills that make you good citizens of this planet, right? So I don't know about you, but I think this world would be a very, very boring place if it was just full of scientists and engineers and no artists, right? So that's pretty much all I have for you. I'm happy to take any questions. And
wow, Mansi, that was really amazing.
thank you.
So yeah, if anybody wants to ask Manvi something, you can unmute, you can ask questions.
Should I I'm going to stop slide sharing so I can see people.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody who would like to ask her anything that you want to ask her regarding?
Can you show us the last slide? I want to take a pic of it. It has that email address if there's any need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to put it, you want her to put the email ID in the chat? You could,
Yeah.
she could do
How
that.
about I just
Last thing that I missed seeing, what exactly was it? Sorry.
Yeah.
hang on.
Also,
Okay,
we
so
have aired this live on YouTube. So in case anybody wants to go back to it or take the recording to the school, you can just follow the Adyan channel and this will be up in the next hour. It's actually being aired live, so it'll be just there. So you can just, there, you got the link, so you can just copy and share it with whomever you want.
cool. Okay, so then I
Yeah.
don't need to reshare my slides. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You talked about finding out whether it is fake news or it's real news. And some time ago, there was a fake news in the name of our Infosys Supremo. And
Okay.
it was said that he is going to make it easy for people to make money. And everybody fell for it because it is from Mr. Narayan Murthy.
Right.
So how do you distinguish between fake news and real news?
Well, in that case, you would go to, so there's what is called lateral browsing, right? Lateral browsing on the internet is supposed, instead of browsing up and down on one web page, you lateral browse. So what you would do is you see this pair of this new news, and then you open another tab and you Google Murthy, right? And you see if there is anywhere where he is saying himself that this is the case, right? So don't believe your source unless there is evidence for it. So what I would have done is I would have done more searches to see if there is a direct announcement from him, right? I mean, our accounts get hacked all the time, right? And so it's possible that that's the case. So, if you're going to like give people your bank account number or something, you should just pick up the phone and call someone and say, hey, this is the kind of news that's floating around. Is this true? So call Infosys and ask if it's actually true, right? In this day and age, it's sad, but there are so many people who are out to fool you. So so this lateral browsing is a technique that people actually teach you to check for media misinformation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Shilpa, you had a question? Ms. Shilpa?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi.
So I wanted to know that if you were to kind of introduce this sort of a STEAM program in school, what would be the starting point? So what would be like kind of an outline of something like this? Because because today's science curriculum per se, or the way it is taught, it is kind of started to, it is pretty much set. Teachers find it very difficult to find either the time or the motivation to move away from the textbook. And therefore, there are parallel programs like the STEM education or the STEAM program that schools want to introduce so that they can showcase that they're doing this kind of work. But where is the starting point for such programs? I mean, any guidelines?
I mean, that's a very good question.
Yeah. I want to add, the same question is there in my mind. One more point I want to add so that you can answer everything together is like how to make a child interested in this, little more critical thinking questions and all. They have been, so much into rote learning and all. They always feel, why to do all this? We are getting marks. Why then? And we try to give them a little more information. They're like, it's not there in the textbook. Why we need to know? So there's only a class of people, a handful, who are actually interested. Then managing the entire class who's not interested, and there are hardly 2-3 children. So if you could just throw some light on this. Thank you so much. Sorry for interrupting.
Of course. No, not at all. So these are great questions, and they're questions that I could give an entire different webinar or multiple different webinars in, but I think the key is to, one, start teacher training, right? Two, actually believe in the fact that you want to do this in a classroom. So it's fine that you have a set curriculum, right? So say, I don't know, pick a topic, right? So we're going to, so I'm sorry, but I don't teach school children. I've taught university students. So let's say we are talking about gravity that allows an apple to fall on the ground, right? So I don't know where in the school curriculum or which class that would be in, but let that be in the curriculum. But instead of having students just read their textbook and you stand in front of the classroom and lecture the students, right? You should have an activity. Take them outside, right? And have them throw things from the top of a building, right? Have them throw paper versus a hammer versus something else. Get them interested, right? Do things. I think doing things with your hands is what gets children excited, right? I think children have a very short attention span these days. I think even I had a very short attention span like 30 years ago, but we have to be able to cater to students' attention spans right now, right? So get them to do activities, right? So if you have something fixed in your curriculum, have an activity that's based on that. But of course, I completely understand that this will take a system level change, right? So your school has to agree with it, and maybe your local government has to agree with it and things like that. So it's a very slow change, but I think the attitude of the teacher and the training of the teacher is what's most important, right? And so, and to answer the other question about how to get children into, how to make students, I think that word is very important, that you cannot make students do anything that they don't want to do, right? You have to convince them. And I'm not saying you can't make them do things, you can by threatening them and things like that, but they don't learn anything by doing that, right? You have to get them interested, right? So if you want to tell them, give them a critical thinking background, right? You tell them why it's important. Don't lecture them about why it's important. Give them an example.
Let me go back.
I'm sorry, was that a
I don't
question?
want to know.
Okay, I guess it's not a question. So I think doing things, demonstrating with examples is one of the most important things to get students interested in this. I hope that answers your question, but like I said, this could take several workshops and webinars to tell you about.
I understand. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're most welcome.
We have time for two more questions. Anybody would like to ask?
Hi, Viveki. This is Nirmala. May I ask one question?
Yes. Go ahead, Nirmala.
Thank you. Ma'am, I wanted to check, like the previous question says, how would we get our teachers to get trained in it? Because yes, our teachers are pretty tied up with a lot of other stuff that need to do in their classes, outside the classes and other activities. But I wanted to know if there is some form of a curriculum. I know the activities and all that we can do, but I'm talking about class 1, 2, 3, where we like, the kids are also pretty, they like activities. They like, coming out of the classroom. But how do we get our teachers to come out? Because I have seen most of the teachers that we have here, they are so stuck up in how they have been doing it for so many years that thinking out of the box or even getting out of that frame becomes difficult. So do you have certain modules or something which we can share with our teachers, or even if they have to undergo certain trainings? So would you be able to give us a few of those modules?
So I personally have not worked on this. This was just something I put together based on my ideas. But so I just returned back from the US permanently to India, and this is what I want to actually work on. So I don't have any of my personal modules, but I don't know how, but maybe we could share it in the YouTube link, YouTube information. But I can put some links on where you can go on the web to look for activities. So I think one of the main ones that I always, at least for in my field, because I'm a planetary scientist, but if you just go to the Jet Propulsion Lab, right, they have these small activities to for students right from preschool up to college, right? And so there are millions and millions of these activity modules on the internet, right? If I come up with modules of my own and trainings of my own, I will definitely share it with Adhian. And the answer to how to get teachers to change their mindset, that's a very hard one, right? I would say what we need is teachers who actually care about the students, right? And then the teachers have to go through this training themselves, right? So if we make this kind of teacher training mandatory, right? And hopefully the teachers themselves will see the importance of such an education, right? And then, I mean, I could just go on, but these are all very theoretical things that I'm telling you. I guess I would say I really don't know the answer to how do you get teachers interested other than, you know, put them through this process first and get them to understand that this is good for the students, it's good for the world in general. I'm sorry if this was not a complete answer.
No, it's
May I
that's fine.
Okay.
Why I'm asking this question is, I'll tell you why. In class 1 and 2, we have science as a subject, and we have it without textbooks. And
Oh,
I
okay.
felt there's so much we can do without a textbook, and I love the idea that we don't need textbooks. And personally, I feel we don't need textbooks for class 1, 2, 3.
You don't
But
need
when
textbook for any level, according to me.
I
Yeah.
agree,
Yeah.
but then when I asked the teachers how we going to do it, ideas, the ideas just don't come up, and then it goes back to worksheets, or it gets to one activity in a month. It doesn't serve the purpose of having so much more that we can do. Simple, like how light travels in a straight line. Those experiments, even if we do it, it's a wow factor for the kids. The kids go back home and they do it, but that
Exactly.
consistency is not happening. And so even if we say we should go for textbooks, less books, and all that, they come up with subjects like transport. There's so much more we can do in transport, even in that pre-kindergarten. Like, what are the different type of transport? The ones which carry
Yeah.
load, the ones which is ambulances or for medical purposes, all that.
Right.
Those ideas don't pop up in our teacher's head, and that is why I was thinking there's something that could help them get some kind of a light, and then they can build up on it.
Right. And like I said, you just have to search for preschool, primary school activities for STEM activities on the internet. And there are a lot of places that you can find these, right? And I will find a way to, if you email me, I'll give you links that I use for my class.
Manvi, what we could do is, if you could just collate a list and send it out to me. We
Okay.
have the email IDs of everyone who's attended today's workshop, today's webinar. We could just email it to them.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I'll do that. Yeah.
Super. Okay, so Rachna, we have a question from you since you raised your hand first.
Thank you, ma'am, and good evening, everyone. I really agree with Miss Nirmala Sharma, whatever Miss was saying at present. Ma'am, as you just, that is Manvi ma'am, as you just gave us one example to check out, that is Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I did it and it's amazing. I mean, I was really, in that 2 seconds, what I saw is quite astounding. So what I feel, ma'am, is that we teachers, we are really tied up with, administrative work along with the academics, and our administrative work takes up a lot of time. And therefore, we do not get, enough time to explore, which we really would like to. So actually, I'm not saying that we cannot, but like the idea or the site or the example that you said, that just go to this site and see. So if we could really get those kind of site examples, etc., it does really make our work a bit easy. But yes, again, as Miss Nirmala said, that we do go back to our mundane life because, once we get short of these kind of sites, we follow the normal route of just only handling worksheets, etc. So if you could be kind enough to give us some more ideas in relation to these sites, etc., or the, what I should say, some like places where we can go and search for some activities, etc.
But what you're saying about, teachers having too much administrative work and no time to change their already formed lessons, right? That requires a system-wide change, right? Let's unburden our teachers.
Yes.
Teachers are meant to be educators, right? Let's find someone else to do the job of the administrator, right? There's enough people to give other jobs to. That's what I believe, and I think that requires a system-wide change. So yes, I will definitely give you links.
We'll take the last question from Shilpa Mandri. It's 6 p.m. So I think we'll hear Shilpa. And then there is somebody who has put something in the chat. So I think that's something that we need to answer before.
Actually,
yeah, Shilpa.
Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I was just thinking, I'll just get back with that question. I had it in mind. Sorry, I'm just so sorry.
And that's okay. So Manvi, in the meanwhile, would it be possible for you to share routes to exploring a career as a science communicator?
So, like I said, I have spent the last 24 years in the US and I've just come back. So I'm not very familiar with what options are available in India, but I plan to update my knowledge on that. But according to me, if you are, say, in high school or in your first year BA degree, even in literature or something like that, I would say just pick a topic and write articles on them and write a blog, right? So something that can show a person that you can do this, right? And I'm not just saying writing, but communicating science in any possible way. So luckily we live in the information age where getting things out is easy. But I don't know of any actual routes through which you can be a science communicator, really. I don't think there are courses that offer that, and I might be completely wrong. I would say some of the liberal arts colleges that are coming up in India might have something like that, but the answer to this is I actually don't know the exact answer to this. But if you contact me, I will let you know.
I remember
Shilpa is ready.
Yes, yeah. So I wanted to know what your thought was on these STEM competitions that are there, science-driven competitions where students, usually university students would do that, like IIT will go and try to make a car which runs on solar or something like that. So at school level, it's difficult to get out projects or products like that. A. B, what is your view on the value of such competitions? Is it good to encourage students to go here? Will it promote critical thinking, or is just one more place where they will just go and become?
I think healthy competition is good. So I've been a judge for a lot of these science competitions, and I've seen some amazing work being done. So as long as schools encourage the work that is done by the students and parents are not helping in any way. In my school, I know there used to be so many people who the parents used to do all the work for. So as long as that's actually happening, yes, that will definitely enhance the students' critical thinking skills, right? According to me, if you allow students to do activities, that's automatically a win, right? And if you put in a competition, you put them in groups. If you put 4 children together and get them to come up with an idea and teach them how to talk to each other, teach them how to accept each other's ideas and listen, you're going to come up with something brilliant. And they're going to be teaching each other critical thinking. And that's what's important.
Yeah. I hope that answered the question, Shilpa.
Yes, thank you so much. That was great. Thank you.
Lovely. Okay, so on that note, Manvi, would you like to say something to everyone in the end?
Well, I think if there are educators out there, then I just want to say that the future really is in your hands. So let's give our children the opportunity to save our world, really. We have so many problems that are critical. So I think the educators should take it upon themselves not to solve the world's problems, but just be able to, be able to be there for your students. And for the students out there, anything is possible, right? Just set your mind to it, and you can do it. And the parents, just allow your children to do what they want to do. Really, don't stifle them. Don't stifle their genius.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you so much, Manvi. It was great hosting you today.
You're most welcome.
And we hope to continue more sessions with you in the future. Do write in, teachers, if you wish that you want invite Manvi over to your school at some point. I'm sure, Manvi, we can work this out and see how we can reach out to more people and what best we can do to support schools to support children.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very, very open to coming out, visiting, and helping in any way I can. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a brilliant weekend. And thank you so much for being a part of today's session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Poonam. Bye, Pramila.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Indeed, it was a very nice session. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavika.